the one, the only, Ben Morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Iyun to Lean On. Today we did Siman Reish Samech Aleph in our Chaim Hilchos Shabbos. It's a very important Siman, maybe the most important Siman in Hilchos Shabbos because it talks about how long Shabbos is. Right? Everyone knows if you ask people how long Shabbos is, right? They have an app. It's called 24/6, right? 24/6, you're allowed to listen to music and use your phone. But 24 hours a week, you're not allowed to. But it practically doesn't come out like that because we have what we call Rabbeinu Tam. More and more people are machmir for Rabbeinu Tam, which basically means that because of a Safek Ben Hashmashos, we're not sure. So you have to go l'chumra in both directions. So on Friday afternoon, Safek D'Oraisa l'chumra might be Shabbos. This is D'Oraisa for sure. So therefore, you have to assume at Shkia it's already Shabbos. And on Moshe Shabbos, so you have to assume that it's still Shabbos until Shkia, until Seizak Chavim, which according to Rabbeinu Tam happens fully after 72 minutes. So really, it's 25 plus 12 minutes. It's really plus 25 hours, 25 plus hours, which is hard to stomach a little bit because really the Torah, right? Sheshes Yom Tavo, this is a Kol Naftachim Yom Shvi Shabbos Hashem El Kefa. Didn't say 5 and 23 hours. Did it say Sheshes Yom Tavo, 6 days? You assume the Torah is pretty correct. Torah is precise, not around that. So if you look in Sif Aleph, he brings the Shita of the Ramah. The Ramah says that Ben Hashmoshes is a very short time. It's 13 and a half minutes. Shloshes Rivi Mil. 3/4 of a mil. A mil is 18 minutes. The mil is 18 minutes. So 13 and a half minutes is what the Gross says, basically. And technically, some people apply to Eretz Yisrael where it gets darker a lot quicker. But even in America, it gets darker faster. Technically, according to the Ramah, once Shkia hits, 13 and a half minutes later, you can already do Malacha on Shabbos. However, the Shulchan Aruch himself brings the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam in Sif Beis over here that says, it's not really clear that he says, right? Rabbeinu Tam says, there's a steer in the Gemara. The Gemara seems to imply in one place that Ben Hashmashos is 3/4 of a mil, one place that's 4 mil. So Rabbeinu Tam divides it up. His answer to distinguish in the two Ben Hashmashos is the first Ben Hashmashos is 3 mil and 1/4 mil. And then you have a second Ben Hashmashos, which is right after 58 and a half minutes. You have another 13 and a half minutes. That's the second Ben Hashmashos. And then it's considered Vadai Seitzik Chavim. So we're left with two sheets over here. And again, now, the people that are Machmir Rabbeinu Tam, really, it's a Shulchan Aruch's opinion. We pass them like the Ramah. The Ramah says that you go with the opinion that there's only one Ben Hashmashos, and it's Shlosha Rivei Mil, which is 13 and a half minutes after Shkia. Technically, Shabbos is 24 hours and 13 and a half minutes. That's still problematic for me because I believe it should be exactly 24 minutes. So I think we can reconcile the Ramah and the Shulchan Aruch as follows: is that if you look in Sif Beis, the Shulchan Aruch says that there's a concept of Tosefes Shabbos. Now, the Gemara talks about Tosefes Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, there's a mitzvah d'oraisa to add on to Yom Kippur before Yom Kippur starts. It's not exactly 24 hours; it's 24 plus. The poskim say even 5 minutes. It's talking about achila. You have to add on, instead of fasting 24 hours, you have to fast 24 plus hours. 24 hours and 5 minutes. Tosefes Yom Kippur is d'oraisa. The Gemara learns that about pasuk. Now, what about Shabbos and Yom Tov? So some poskim say most poskim say it's d'Rabbanan. The Gemara has a brisa which seems to say that Shabbos and Yom Tov also lives in Tosefes, but some say something's d'oraisa, something's d'Rabbanan. I believe the Rambam says it's d'oraisa, I think, and the other Rishonim say it's d'Rabbanan. So I believe both are right. Like I often try to say, sometimes both opinions are right, and I believe that at the end of Sif Beis, the Ramah says if you're Makabel Shabbos before Shkia Sacham, before the sun sets, that's a Kabbalah. When I say it's Shabbos, that's a Kabbalah which is Tosefes Shabbos D'Rabbanan. Because Shabbos didn't start. Shabbos starts at Shkia Sachama when the sun sets. Right? Actually, Shabbos doesn't start actually until Seizak Chavim. Who says Shabbos starts at Shkia Sachama? Right? It doesn't start at Shkia Sachama. It starts at nightfall. Seizak Chavim is generally nightfall. We just don't know. Ben Hashmashos were Machar and Safek. So if you look carefully in the words of the Shulchan Aruch, he says that there's a mitzvah to Tosefes Shabbos also during Ben Hashmashos, and that's during the first 3 mil and 3 1/4 mil, which is 58 and a half minutes after Shkia. right? Which is basically Rabbeinu Tam Shita. That's the first Ben Hashmashal. That you can do all Tosefes. You can abstain from work that whole 3.25 mil, all 58 minutes, start exactly at Shkia. Or you even a minute before the 58.5 minutes have elapsed, you can accept that as Tosefes Shabbos. Now, when you're accepting that as Tosefes Shabbos, that's Tosefes Shabbos, I believe, Midoraisa. Tosefes Shabbos before Shkia is Darabanan. Tosefes Shabbos, once Ben Hashma, you're already in the first Ben Hashmash, according to the Tam, that is Tosefes Shabbos. But it's not Shabbos, it's Tosefes Shabbos. Right? It's Tosefes Shabbos. The suffix is only when it comes to the last 3/4 mil, which is suffix d'oraisa l'chumra. According to Rabbeinu Tam, the first 58.5 minutes are considered part of the previous day, or at least it's not said so. It's definitely part of the day. It's not considered Tzedakah. You can make that that's part of Tosefes Shabbos. So once you're already in that parameter, I think even the Ramah would agree, right, that Tosefes Shabbos is Doraisa over there because you're dealing with Ben Hashmashos over here. Now, the concept of Ben Hashmashos is Safek Doraisa L'Chumra. We're not sure if it's day or night. That's what Ben Hashmashos is. Now, I mentioned many times, Safek Doraisa L'Chumra, sometimes L'Chumra Midoraisa, sometimes L'Chumra Midorabana. And it depends if it's Chazik Yisura or not, meaning there's a Chazaka that Isser is prevalent over here. So when your Shkia happens, Shkia Zachama happens, the Chazaka was his day, right? So now, right when the next 3/4 mil, the Ramah talked about Ben Hashmashos, at that point, right, it's already a Safek Doraisa L'Chumra Midrabanan, for sure. Because it's not as Chazik that it's Shabbos yet. According to the Shulchan Aruch, once after you have the first 58.5 minutes, the last 13.5 minutes, so therefore, at that point, so it's considered to be a suffix. That's considered to be a suffix. But I don't believe the first 58.5 minutes are considered to be a suffix because you have a chazak cheskas yom. And we don't know, according to the Shulchan Aruch, it's two ben hashmash, is that or not? So you have a cheskas yom. So therefore, that's why he says Tosefes, you can do Tosefes. Tosefes, I'm adding on, meaning it really is not Shabbos, but I'm adding on. So therefore, I'm adding on. So because I have a chazak cheskas yom, until now it was day. We don't know now, so we go to the chazak. We assume it's not day. Chazak works even on daraisas, even for Shabbos, which is kares and chiyuv misa. Nonetheless, you have a chazak. You have an assumption that it's still yom, and that's why you can make it tosefes. Now the tosefes is daraisa because at least it's in the gather of suffix, because it's definitely not. We're not sure if it's day or not, but the tosefes. But it's not Shabbos, for sure not Shabbos. And then the last 13.5 minutes. That's considered to be, that's where it's pretty dark already, for sure. In most of the part of the world, it's pretty dark already. So therefore, the cheskas yom went out the window because it looks to the eye that, so if you were not makabel Shabbos yet, so that is subject to Raisa l'chumra midrabanan. That's where it applied, right? The first 58 minutes are not Shabbos. It's a cheskas yom, right? But the last 13.5 minutes is a subject to Raisa l'chumra. And we're machmir midrabanan, to be machmir midrabanan over there. And I believe it's not clear that the Ramah is following a different opinion. It could be the Ramah is talking about the 3/4 mil that's, he agrees with Rabbeinu Tam. He's talking about the 3/4 mil, which is at the end of the second Ben Hashmashos. And that's something that is l'chomar midrabanan. Right? Except if you're makabel Shabbos. If I say during this 72-minute period I'm makabel Shabbos at any point, it's Chazik Yisura. That becomes Chazik Yisura. That's something midoraisa. Because once I say the words I'm makabel Shabbos, now the Chazaka's assumption is Shabbos was mentioned already. That's his Chazik Yisura. Something midoraisa. That's why Tosefes Shabbos in that period is doraisa. But if I say before Shabbos, Plaga Mincha, before Shkia, I say it's Shabbos, but there's evidence that it's day. The sun is still out. So therefore, even though I'm a Chazik, I say that it's Shabbos, it's canceled by the chazaka of the day. So they're chazakas which knock each other out, and therefore it's something daraisa l'chom midrabanan. So the fact that they're machmir that Shabbos is only darabanan at that point. That's why you're allowed to say to a amir la'akum at that point to do something for you, amir la'akum for a mitzvah, sorach mitzvah. They weren't goes there on a shus ben hashmash that we learn in Sif Aleph in the Ramah. So that period is considered to be only Shabbos D'Rabbanan. Any Tosefes that you add on is only D'Rabbanan. It's only D'Rabbanan at that point. It can never be D'Oraisa because I have competing Chazakas, and the most it could be is so D'Oraisa L'Chumra Midrabanan, even though I'm a Kabbalah Shabbos. But once I get into the Ben HaShosh Midoraisa, where the sun is faded, so it's not clear. There is a Cheskas Yom, but if I go ahead and I say it's Shabbos now, right, after the sun sets, so it's really kind of murky. We had a small assumption that it's still day. We don't know, but now I'm Vadai Makabal it as Shabbos. That's stronger than the Cheskas Yom, and therefore I give it as Chazak Yisura, and it changes Savak D'Oraisa L'Chumra Midoraisa. And technically, if I'm a Kabbalah Shabbos at that point, it's D'Oraisa. But it's still a suffix. It's still a suffix. That's the point. It's still a suffix. So therefore, really Shabbos should be 24 hours. Right? It should be 24 hours. Because even if you don't say, like I'm saying, that the Ramah and the Shulchan are agreeing, the Ramah's 13 and a half minutes is the end of Rabbeinu Tam's 13 and a half minutes. Even if you say there is an opinion, the Gra says this, that there's only 13 minutes after Shkia. But whichever way you hold, right, you should go L'Kula in both directions. Why should you go L'Kula in both directions? Because let's say Friday afternoon, right? Friday, let's say you hold like the Gra, 13 and a half minutes. So the 13, if you're not Makabel Shabbos, it's just Ben Hashmashos, so again, you have a Cheskas Yom. So you have a Cheskas Yom, I prove to you, you have a Cheskas Yom over there. So it's Savak D'Oraisa L'Chumra, it's not even, we don't go L'Chumra because they're Chazaka, Cheskas Yom. So therefore, it's considered on Friday afternoon. It's still considered day, right? And then, so you can do Walacha. People think once the sun sets, you have to stop doing Walacha. According to the Ramah, you don't. According to the Gra, you don't. 13 and a half minutes. I can do Walacha up until 13 and a half minutes after Shkia. It's a nice kula, right? And on Motzei Shabbos, 13 and a half minutes, according to the Gra, it says a Kochavim. That's considered the end of Shabbos, exactly 24 hours. And if you're doing like according to Rabbeinu Tam, right? So again, so the first 58 and a half minutes after Shkia, that's if a Cheskas Yom, according to. So it would, if you treat that right as day on Friday afternoon, so you would treat that as part of Shabbos, a part of the day of Shabbos on Motzei Shabbos, and it would be exactly. Now, but there is, according to Rabbeinu Tam, an extra 13 and a half minutes, which is apparently the reason he distinguishes the two Ben Hashmashos is you lost the Cheskas Yom after 58 and a half minutes. The last 13 and a half minutes, there's no Chazak over there. So therefore, Savak D'Oraisa L'Chumra Midrabanan. So according to Rabbeinu Tam, basically, if you follow like the Gra, basically, you're allowed to do Malacha up to 13 and a half minutes afterward. And if on Friday afternoon, and you end at 13 and a half minutes after, so it's back 24 hours, according to the Shulchan Aruch, maybe it's 24 hours, and because of a Savak D'Rabbanan, you should add an extra 13 and a half minutes to 72. So that's why some people 72 minutes after Shkia. But if you hold like that, then you're allowed to do Malacha, right, the first 58 and a half minutes after the sunset on Friday afternoon. So if you're going to hold like Rabbeinu Tam, you have to hold like him the whole way, and you get a big dispensation on Friday afternoon. And even if you hold like the Gra, you still have a smaller dispensation on Friday afternoon, exactly 24 hours. According to Rabbeinu Tam, so this is way at least like a little closer. It's not 25 hours. The most it is 24 hours plus 13 and a half minutes. According to the way we paskin, really technically it's exactly 24 hours. 13 and a half minutes you're allowed to do malacha because of the Cheskas Yom I explained over here based on the two concepts of Sefer Shabbos. I know it's a little complicated. I'll get it more into this as we go into Hilchos Shabbos, but I think this is the correct understanding of Hilchos Shabbos, and no one should be machmir for 25 plus hours to keep Shabbos. The most it should be is 24 hours and 13 and a half minutes. Hope you enjoyed today's share. See you on the next one.